Welcome back to this episode of this podcast where we sharpen the iron, polish that rush, making a brand new iron here in this podcast with your host. Today marks the 10th episode, so I decided to bring on a guest, and this guest speaker was one of my clients. It takes her through the journey of the 15 months she was working with me, through how she changed out her whole wardrobe, losing 50 pounds in 12 months. Throughout her journey, you're going to be hearing how she felt insecure, being overweight, how she was dealing with those problems before, going into her being a new beginner inside a gym, how she overcame that problem, going to learn about her nutrition, melting the fat away, going to hang out with friends, how she overcame that situation. You're going to hear all these things throughout her journey in this podcast. So without further ado, let's get right into it. What was your life like before the gym?
Before the gym, I've always been like super adventurous and I've always like wanted to do all these adventurous things, but I was like very insecure and like it was really hard for me to like want to do those things because of my weight and like my perception of how people saw me. So I feel like I was just so insecure. I would still like do things like I went on trips, I went hiking and stuff like that, but I was like really kind of held back by my weight and like just physical activity in general.
Totally understand. Now, with you being insecure, was it more just with yourself or when you see other people doing the same activity as you were?
Yeah, so like I was in a group of a bunch of like young adults and like they would go and do volleyball and like all of these active things and I just felt like I was just embarrassed honestly to like be in the body that I was and like to even try to participate because I didn't want to like fail and look stupid because it's like it looks like oh like she's overweight, it's she's also like unathletic and like she can't do anything because of her weight kind of thing, you know, like I was just insecure that like that would be people's perception of me, so like I didn't even try, you know.
Totally understand. And would you say that was like the game changer for you to go into the journey, start your fitness journey, or what was there another game changer moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I tried like so many different times for throughout my whole life, like to lose weight, like successfully and unsuccessfully. Like I'd lost a little bit of weight here and there, but always gained it back. So like I did keto, lost like 40 pounds and then gained it back. Um, I think the catalyst for me was just like, I think I was just fed up with not actually having something change, you know. And so I recognized that the habits that I had were just really bad habits and I knew that I needed help. And so that was just kind of what started all of that.
I got you.
Yeah.
There's two things I picked up on. First, keto, was that the only one, and did you try other things besides keto?
I think that was basically the only one.
Okay.
Yeah, I was coming right out of high school when I tried that, so it was like really popular, and I didn't know much else. And so that was working, and there was like people I knew at the time who were doing it, and it worked for them. And so I was like, well, it's working for them, so it'll work for me, and it did work for me.
Sure.
Except that it was totally unsustainable, and then I gained all of the weight back. So
Totally understand. We
yeah.
get to fall in that notion of something works for somebody, so let me try that out.
Right.
But then we wonder what happens after that, things that, right?
Yeah.
Or when it comes to these diets, they tell us like, cool, we do X, Y, and Z, but then what you do afterwards, right? Or like, how do you plan around, you want carbs back in? Because
right.
I'm sure there's carb friends of like, you know, whether you're sweets or.
Yeah, I love sweets. So it was just like kind of miserable.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it was working. So I was like, oh, that's fine. I'll just be miserable until it didn't work anymore. Right. But I had like no kind of foundation of like healthy eating or, you know, what that looks like and how to do that as a lifestyle.
Right.
And so I had no other like frame of reference for what to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Totally understand. Now, would you say like with the habits and the lifestyle too, would you say that you picked that from your parents growing up as a kid, or would you feel like you picked up those habits and that lifestyle?
Yeah, so I generally was a really picky eater anyway as a kid, like really picky. And so it was already like hard for my
yeah, I've seen the list.
I have a huge list of things I don't eat. But it's getting smaller, you know. Slowly. Give me till I'm 40, but it'll be better.
I'll be seeing like it pops up in my notes sometimes.
Does it really?
And, like she says edited on it. So
like, yeah, it's because it's a huge conversation topic.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, hey, look at this, and everyone's like, what?
Yeah, no, trust me. I was like, all right, this is how it's gonna work for you.
Yeah, but yeah, so that was already an obstacle for my parents because even like the vegetables they they did eat and cook, I was like, absolutely not. And so there was that, but also my parents don't eat like a lot of variety of food either. And so I didn't grow up in a house where we were eating a lot of different variety. Both my parents work, and it was like easy meals that were fast, and that's just what they knew, and that's what we did. And then that plus me being like picky and like liking fast food, it's like, I don't want to eat this, I want McDonald's, and so like I don't think it was just their fault, but it's definitely like it definitely wasn't an environment where I grew up with like good habits,
100%.
Yeah.
No, you said besides fast food, the easy meals was like anything else, like frozen foods or like ready to go meals.
So we had like
describe easy meals more.
Yeah, so we ate like a lot of tacos, which like those are fine. We have a deep fryer, so like we would deep fry a lot of things like chicken fried steak, chicken fried chicken, like chicken strips, like all that kind of stuff, like casseroles that are like really yummy and indulgent, like stuff like that are like easy to throw together and fast. Then we'd have like crock pot meals, which are like pretty healthy, except that I would just have like meat and potatoes,
Right.
with like a lot of potatoes and like stuff like that. So it wasn't all bad by any means. But definitely I like my portion control wasn't good. And then like that plus having those more indulgent foods on the regular didn't really set me up well, I don't think.
Totally understand. Now, with all those things that you got going on in the past, things that when you first got into the fitness journey, you were working with a class, am I correct? Or were you working with someone else before you stepped inside the gym?
Yeah, so I worked with a nutritionist.
Okay.
So there were some people I knew just like through social media that had some success with this like social media like nutritionist lady. And I was like, you know what? My habits are so bad right now because I was like into my first career and kind of like being an adult for the first time. And so I was in this cycle of like not eating breakfast and then being so hungry for lunch and then not having a good lunch. And so then around 3 o'clock when I got out of work, I would eat fast food and it'd be like a huge meal. And then I wouldn't be hungry for dinner. And then the cycle just repeated. And I recognized like, this is not good, like this is not working for me. So I started working with this nutritionist, and she really helped me kind of just get my habits in place there, which set me up once I actually did step inside the gym, that I wasn't starting from absolutely zero. And so we worked on like trying vegetables and stuff like that. And so like that's when I started eating broccoli and asparagus and like the vegetables I actually like. So
it's funny how it works out like that, right?
I know.
We get picky on a lot of things, but then it works out for the best of us down the road.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like for picky eaters out there, like you think like, oh, I don't like this, but you're just unfamiliar with the taste of green food, like you're just not used to it. And so it's like my encouragement to people who are picky is like to keep trying those foods, because it's not that you don't like it, it's just you're not used to what it tastes like.
It's different texture too, right? Like more crunchy versus like other foods a little bit more soft and chewy. I'm the same way when it comes to like guacamole, avocado. Never really tried it, but I actually got myself into it a little bit. So
really?
Avocado and like guacamole is not my fan, but I'm starting to get into it now.
That makes one of us.
I know you're still not.
It's on my list.
With the other 100 lists she has, to be honest, as well. We'll dive more into that when we're talking about. So, what made you step from working with a nutritionist inside a gym? What were you looking for after like working with a nutritionist, moving into the gym?
Yeah, so I was working with a nutritionist, and then I had a friend who was working with someone she knows who was doing personal training, and she was doing like these online workouts with her, like a live session, but online from home. And seems to really like it. And I was like, you know what, let me give this a shot too. So I started doing that, and I bought like a few things. Like I bought some resistance bands. I bought some dumbbells. I had like 8-pound dumbbells. And then
was this during the time of the pandemic and COVID and things like that?
It was in around like 2021, like right, like in the summer, like the beginning of 2021, I think. So just after all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess there's still like remnants of that.
Sure.
Yeah. But and I had like a 15-pound kettlebell, and what was happening is I was outgrowing everything, and I really liked the strength training portion, and I was like, man, this is so fun, and I really like it, but I can't keep buying equipment. And I had like this thought in my mind that was terrifying. That was like, you really just need to go into a gym where you can not be limited by weight, you know? And so that's kind of where it started. And then like the little thought, and I was like, oh, I don't know about this. So then I started like doing research with my insurance. Like, is it going to cover it? Like maybe they have like programs and stuff like this. And so I saw they did, except I misinterpreted what it actually was. And I called the gym that you work at, and I was like, hey, you know, I saw that personal training's like covered by insurance. And long story short, it wasn't. But they convinced me to come in anyway. And so that's kind of how we got there.
How you fall into it. Now, I want to take a step back. I know you said like your first time getting a resistance training, strength training, correct? Like, what was your mindset going into it, and then what made you fall in love with strength training?
I'm honestly, I just think I wanted to move more. You know, I wanted to like be healthier and take care of my body. You know, we only get one body here, and like I wanted to just like steward it well. And I knew I wasn't doing that before, so I was like, I need to start. It felt really safe to like start in that way. And I just think I was really proud that things, like I knew I was strong, you know, and that was cool. And I liked that when I was doing strength training, I was like, oh, like I'm good at this, you know? And I think that's kind of what like kept me and like really made me fall in love with it.
Sure, totally understand. No, that's awesome. Because you got a lot of viewers out there saying like they want to get into strength training, but they don't know how to, or like they don't know how to feel about it, right? They don't want to get too bulky, or they don't want to look like a dude or anything like that, lifting heavy weights, right? So that's great insight. Now, fast forward, we step inside a gym, get in a gym. What were you looking for in the gym? And what were you trying to go? What was your further, you know, future route moving forward, just like the gym, personal training, all those things like that?
I knew that I needed help because I had already worked with a personal trainer. So I knew I needed like guidance. Because I had done gyms before, like I'd been in gyms before, like here and there, trying to figure it out on my own, and never, like it was very obvious I didn't really know what I was doing. You know, I was just kind of doing machines here and there, like doing other things here and there, which never really worked for me. So I really wanted to like do it right, you know, and so that's kind of why I decided to do personal training.
Totally understand. Now, the funny thing is, when she first signed up with me, she was not really trying to go with a dude. She was trying to look for a female. So during that process, what made you switch your mindset into like working with a dude versus like sticking with, no, let me just find a female and things like that?
Well, I was just scared to be like, no. You know, I signed up and they were like, oh, this guy's going to be your personal trainer. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, no.
Before we talk about it, you got to tell the story, like why you didn't like me at the beginning through the impression of it. You have a funny story with that, though.
I don't know if I know what you're thinking of, but I just
talking about the door and things that.
Oh yeah. I'm like walking in, maybe 10 feet behind this guy, and we're in Texas, and like he just doesn't even like pause to hold the door for me, and I was like, wow, okay, first impression, you know. And then they're like, this guy's your personal trainer, and I'm like, oh, good, like this rude man who doesn't hold the door for me and also is like this giant is going to be my personal trainer, and it's not what I wanted. I just really wanted someone who like could empathize with where I'd been. And so like it was really nerve-wracking to me to like work with you, and also like keeping in mind like how insecure I was. You know, like I was very embarrassed to be like where I was at, and so like working with you, like who looks like you, I was like, we're not the same. And I felt like, oh, I'm going to be judged. Like his job is to like stare at me, and like, you know, it was not comfortable.
It was intimidating, by any means. Right?
Yes. Very intimidating.
Totally understand. Yeah. 100%. But my defense too, at the time, she didn't tell me this story until like 2 or 3 months into working.
Oh no, I didn't tell you that for like 2 years.
Yeah, or something like that. She didn't tell me that. So my defense, I did not know that. But besides that, things that I do get that a lot too. Like I could be intimidated. I could be, you know, like this whole phenomenon of like what this person could really look like and things that I totally understand. Because like, yeah, you're 100% correct. I I've never been in your position before,
Mhm.
but I was willing to work on certain things as we're working together.
Mhm.
Now, when we first like came into started training and things that this is where I felt shame and things like that too, because she didn't really like, she knew resistance training, but not to the extent that I knew and things like that. So at the time, I was like up here, and I never really worked with people to meet them where they're at and things like that. So when we first started working together, I just took her through we were gonna do a low body, upper body split one week. I took her through a lower body. We go through all the workouts. I go make her do a stationary lunge, which is a split squat. And then the most embarrassing, I felt so guilty, felt so, I don't know what else, but I just felt so ashamed after that. It's like when she tried to do it, she fell, and I felt so terrible that day. And I was like, oh man, this person is not gonna come back and things like that, because like that was the most like ashamed I felt like coming to like one being a new person trainer, two watching another person fall based on just right at the time just like different capabilities of
Mhm.
doing the movements and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's what I knew at the time.
Uh-huh.
So with you seeing that, that circus and that first day and things that, what made you come back for the second and so on and so on?
Yeah, I think first of all, in your defense, I was, like, oh yeah, I've been working with this like trainer, which was true. But I think in my mind, I thought I was further along than I actually was too. So I think I probably communicated, oh, I'm like a little bit further along than I actually was. So yeah, I definitely was not strong enough for those. But yeah, I think at that point, like I said earlier, I was so fed up with like being where I was at, and I was like, listen, I fell this one time, like I'm not gonna fall again. Like I have to come back. I have to get stronger, and just like commit to this and see what happens. I didn't want to give up.
That's awesome. Because I know a lot of times people will just see that and like give up right there and things.
Yeah.
So that's awesome for all the viewers out there watching and things that. Now moving forward and things that we just worked together for 2 years or 15 months, right?
15 months.
15 months, yeah. Worked together for 15 months
Yeah.
here and things that. During those 15 months, what would you say were like the like aha moments that you found across working together and things that?
I think I just genuinely fell in love with strength training. Like, seeing progress in general was really cool. With like the barbell lifts, because that was really fun and something I had never done before. A lot of people growing up doing sports do some type of barbell things at some point. I never had any experience with that at all. And so that was really cool. And like falling in love with that. And then it was like, I was pursuing weight loss, but then I was also pursuing getting strong. And so it was really cool to have this other motivation on the side that wasn't just like, hey, I'm trying to lose weight, but also, hey, I'm really working for something else here, was just really, really cool for me.
100%. And during those times too, is when we're working on the stats, we started with the basics first, because since you were new to the gym and things that, to like a different environment, we just kind of open you up to knowing what to do, exercises, movements, getting yourself familiar with like the stations, the machines, and just the community itself.
Yeah.
Because there'd be times when she would work out by herself, and she would like, I'll be training other clients. She would stand right next to me or close by to make her feel comfortable that she was like,
yeah, I didn't like going. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, even like after a year of still going, I'd be driving to the gym and I would just be so anxious on my way there. Like, who am I gonna see? Who am I gonna like talk with? Or like, I mean, the idea of even working in with somebody, I was like, absolutely not. I'm not talking to anybody, And so, yeah, it was like terrifying. It was a completely new environment. It was loud, and like mostly male dominated in our gym specifically. And so it was very, very uncomfortable.
Now, what made you feel comfortable over those times of you going by yourself to the gym? What steps and process did you do to kind of like open yourself up to, getting yourself more comfortable, to like working in with people if you had to, and three, just like, like the anxious is gone now. Like you go inside the gym, like you're like just one of the other people who's working towards the goals and things like that.
Yeah, I think I invited one of my friends to come with me. And so like we would start working out together here and there when we could. And so that made me feel more comfortable, because then, I don't have my headphones in. I'm like more a part of the gym environment. And then her and I are like talking and laughing, and I'm like being myself, but also in the gym,
Mhm.
you know? And so that was cool, which is what I got when I was with you too.
Right.
And so it was like more exposure of that. And then like I feel like when you start doing that and you're a little more like available and open, if your headphones aren't in, then you start to like meet other people and actually be able to like make those connections. And I think that's really what started to help me feel more comfortable was starting to connect with other people in the gym and really feel like this is a community.
Right.
People would like encourage me and say like, oh, I'm seeing your progress. And, you know, I was like, okay, wait, I like belong in this space because for so long it felt like I was an imposter. Like I didn't actually belong here. And I'm like, okay, not only do I come here all the time, like I belong here, I'm a part of this community. And so that kind of is what shifted it for me.
Totally
Yeah.
understand. No, that's awesome. It's been a great story too, because
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, even though it did take a year, like you still made it work through that whole year. And things that a lot of times people would just give up within 3 or 6 months.
Yeah.
Not make it through a whole year.
I mean, I definitely had like bad days. Like
Sure.
I would show up and be like, I'm in the worst mood, and I would just leave, you know? And
Right.
so like there were times that happened. But still, if you were to take like the average of all of those sessions, it was still like net positive, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, those days are going to come. Like everybody's going to have those moments and things like that, but it's like what you just did right there, right? It's how you come back that next day or the next session or the next week.
Yeah.
Just keep moving yourself forward. Now we got you into getting yourself comfortable with the gym, with the weights, all those things like that. And then we took the next step of working on your nutrition. You already had a good idea of like how much macros you're doing, like what foods work with you, all those things like that.
Well, I never tracked macros before.
Okay.
Yeah. So like with you, that was the first time I'd ever actually tracked macros. Like I tracked calories in the past, like middle school. That's that on growing up overweight. But yeah, yeah. So, but with my nutritionist, we didn't do any tracking. It was a lot of like adding healthy things and like fixing the habits.
Okay.
So there wasn't really any kind of knowledge as far as macros went.
I got you.
Yeah.
I remember the one time where I was working together, like I was trying to get her to limit down her iced lattes, and that was one thing that she was not negotiating with me on.
Still haven't.
Still haven't. She still did it to this day.
Every day.
You know, again, we made it work, and this is why I'm big on like counting macros, tracking calories, and things like that. It was because it was still for allow you to, you know, enjoy those things while still hitting your weight loss goals and things like that. So that's a big thing why I'm so big on tracking macros and tracking your calories and things like that. So you're able to do those things while still doing things you love and stuff like that.
Right.
Now with that too, you're still having that same habit of trying like move on to the next step of trying to hit your protein. And for the longest time, you were struggling to figure out how to get that much protein, correct? Because we were looking for like 170, 180 at the time. I know we had this moment when I was conversing with you, trying to figure out different ways to incorporate protein. Do you remember that moment that we had this conversation on?
I don't know. I remember our breakfast conversation.
Yes, that's the one I'm referring to. Where you stay in the bed for an hour extra. I was like, well, there you go right there. This extra hour that we could be hitting the protein things.
Yeah, I'm telling him, no, there's no way that I have time to make breakfast in the morning. And he goes, we're at the gym at the squat rack, and he walks away and gets a piece of paper and he goes, we're writing down your schedule. What time do you wake up? And I was like, I actually have a picture of it. Me like writing against the mirror.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what is this man doing? But it turns out you were right. And I did have time to make breakfast. And I actually make my breakfast every morning still. So that's one thing I don't prep is I don't prep breakfast. I make it in the morning.
I don't prep breakfast either. I just make it fresh. Everything else I prep and things.
Yeah.
But guys, what she's saying is like, not this thing I'm like right or anything like that, but I was just helping her find different ways and break down and get the stats reverse engineer to the point where she could find different ways to hit her protein and things that. Like again, the extra hour, like a lot of times people don't understand, like an extra hour, we can find breakfast within 5-10 minutes to make and still hit that goal and things that. So yeah, what she was talking about, I did grab a piece of paper, I grabbed like a pen or highlighter and things that. It's like we're writing this down while she's working out at the same time too. So in between sets, I write down her schedule. And we're trying to break it down to like, all right, how can we fit this into your schedule? And again, meet in the middle and things that. So when we broke it down, it's like that's what the aha moment was, because she's like, oh yeah, like I do have the extra time. Right. This is again at the time what were the priorities, right? But over time we start building up. It's like cool, priorities start doing breakfast, but you're able to still do the things what you were doing before, but just more energy and things that.
Yeah, and
would
it
you
all
say?
comes down to like the habits, you know,
Right.
like I was so locked into my habits before and I was like, I just don't have time.
Mhm.
And I wasn't super open-minded in like being able to kind of shift those things,
Right.
you know, and that's why I think having a coach is so helpful because it completely like it gives you that objective perspective because you know my bias is like, oh no, like I don't have any time for that, and you're like, objectively yes you do, let me show you, you know.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so that's why like having a coach is like very, very helpful.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
Nah, and that was the thing too. I was like, hey, listen, like we're gonna find every single possible way we can do it just to help you get yourself there.
Right.
Because especially too is like at the time when we were starting out too, try and hit like 170, 180 grams of protein. We're going to dive into that too because I'm sure the viewers are wondering like how you do that, especially for female and things that, and they always struggle doing that too. But it's like, how can we get that implemented throughout the time and things like that too? And also too, we're going back to like the habits, right? You say you won't eat breakfast and you go straight to lunch. It's kind of what you're doing, right? When you work with me, we're still doing the iced lattes, but we won't have lunch, and then we have lunch, and then we'll do the kind of like the same pattern.
For a while, I was doing like iced latte, smoothie, and then lunch. And you're like,
Right.
no, let's not do the smoothie. And I really wanted to hold tightly to my smoothie, and you were like, we need to move on from the smoothie.
Right.
But you were patient about it. But I mean, I think I'm just so incredibly stubborn, which is, I think, probably why this has worked for me, because I'm like, I'm not giving up. I'm so stubborn, you know, but it also has caused, you know, a lot of problems where like, for someone who immediately was like, okay, yeah, sure, like I'll listen to you, I'm a little bit more like hard-headed, and I'm like, no, I have to see that my way is not going to work first. And then I'm like, okay, so what were you saying? Like, let's maybe give that a try.
Right,
you know?
100%.
Yeah.
It was always fun when those small moments came and just like, all right, like you see what happens now.
Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, well I've been telling you that for 3 months. I'm really glad that we've come around.
It's about time, you know. I told you before, you know, if you want to walk, I'll walk with you. You want to jog, I'll jog. You want to sprint, I'll sprint with you.
Yeah.
You just let me know which one, and I'll do it with you and things like that. So,
yeah.
But at the end of the day, guys, it's all about like how committed you are to moving towards that direction, and also how ready you are too. Like, I'm never gonna be the person that's gonna be forcing upon you or anything like that. Again, like she said, I was patient. I was 100%. As when the time was right for her, that's when we move on to the next step. I think a lot of times people get the notion, it's like same thing when we try like these diets, like the keto, like you said before, right? It's like cool, like you do these things, but like you're on time, like you feel like on a time clock, or they give you a certain amount of time frame, right? And then it's like, what happens after that? It's like you still don't learn anything. So it's like now it's like cool, like we're learning based on your pace and things that what you're trying to learn first, what you're trying to build, right?
Yeah.
So down the future, like you don't fall back into that past. You just you have the right tools, the resources that you need to and the habits to get yourself to the future. So if anything does happen again, cool, you know what to do and things that. So totally understand with that.
Yeah, and I was still making progress.
Yes.
You know, even though like maybe the habits weren't like maybe super optimal or anything yet, you know, like we're slowly kind of, we were getting me to a better place.
Yes.
But along the way, like still making progress
for sure
throughout that, which was cool to see.
100%.
Like I didn't need to be like 100% perfect right at the very beginning, you know?
But 100%. I mean, that's also the thing too, because there's times too we talked about, like we had conversations, was like, man, my weight's just not dropping as fast and things that. There's times where I have to like kind of like bring you back as like, hey, listen, like this is what you've been doing, things that, like look at this progress, and like over the course of time, like hey, this is how much you lost or what you've done.
Right.
But it's also too is like again, we're going at your pace and things that, like you say, you're not 100% or you're not adamant just doing everything that you need to do, but you slowly build yourself up over time.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people get that notion like you got to hit this certain way or something like that. It's like you could, but at the same time, it's bad to build that notion of those habits, that pace you're trying to go, so you still enjoy it, but you don't get burned out at the same time with the journey and things like that.
Right.
So totally understand. And with the habits too, I remember times where we're still doing DoorDash and we're still doing takeout and things like that. So why don't you talk to the audience about that process and things like that?
Big takeout fan over here. Yeah, big takeout fan. I still love takeout. I have fried chicken once a week. It's like fried chicken day.
It's your staple right there.
It is. Yeah. I just love fried chicken, and like you can pry it out of my cold dead hands. Like I love it. But I think like for a while, you know, having takeout twice a week was still working for me. Like I could make it work.
Yes.
I was still having progress, but then at a certain point, like you get to the point where the progress slows and you have to start objectively thinking, okay, is this like hurting my progress? And you have to ask yourself, like, I found myself asking, is this like worth negating all this other hard work I'm doing throughout the week? You know? And sometimes the answer was yes, and sometimes it was no. And so it was like this epiphany I had that I had permission to say yes to food, but I also had permission to say no to foods. And that was really freeing for me because like I feel like the whole body positivity movement and all that is like, you can say yes to whatever you want, but also like you can say no to things. You can say no in social gatherings whenever there's a bunch of food around and you're like, no, this isn't going to serve me and my goals. Like you have permission to say no, and that was really freeing to me and allowed me to like hit my goals better and like actually like my decisions were more aligned to what I was wanting
Most definitely.
for myself.
No, that's very powerful too, because again, like you just hit on like the peer pressure, like social gatherings. Like a lot of times people have to like either join in or do what they want to do just to fit in, right? But it's like when it comes, like why not get yourself there to the goal first, and then we can work on that process of cool, you want to go social gathering, you can still do those things while having a good time, but still staying within the means of your goal and things there.
Yeah, and I think the social aspect of weight loss is like maybe one of the hardest things, you know? Like for me it was for sure because it's like, especially if you're like one of the only overweight people in your friend group, you know, like people don't understand where you're coming from and like they can eat whatever they want. They're not meal planning, they're not tracking macros. You know, they get to go like spontaneously say like, hey, I want to go get some cookies. Do you want to come? Or hey, let's go get ice cream. And it's so hard to always be like, no, 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 because not only are you saying no to like the food itself, but you're also missing out on those social interactions, you know? And so it's really challenging. And it's one of the hardest things I think that people encounter whenever they're trying to do like a massive lifestyle change that isn't talked about like as much. You know?
Now, how would you say you felt during that time?
It was like really isolating at times. Like I remember I had a whole meltdown. You probably remember this. You remember when I was like, I don't know. I remember just texting paragraphs upon paragraphs. And I had like meal prepped this meal that took like a really long time and it didn't turn out well. And I had already done dishes 3 times that day. And I was just like sobbing. I was like, I can't do this. It's too hard. I was so frustrated and just like fed up because it just felt like too much, you know, like that day it was just like all of it all together. I don't remember the question.
How did you feel during those times?
Oh,
you felt isolated.
Right. And so like in that moment, I think I was just throwing myself a pity party because I'm like, you know, other people aren't dealing with this. Like they're not crying in their kitchen on the floor after
I remember the text
after throwing their whole meal prep in the trash and like I'm like, people my age aren't doing this. Like, why is this a me thing? Like, why do I have to be the one doing it? And I was just spiraling for no reason. I mean, there's a reason, but like, just throwing myself a cute little pity party.
Now, what was the reason for you to feel like that pity party or feel that way?
I think my progress had like stalled a little bit at that point, and I was like really close to that under 200 mark, and I really wanted to hit it. And I think I was just like hitting some roadblocks, and then it was just probably a long week, and then that happened, and it was just like the straw that broke the camel's back. But yeah, I think it was really like I compared myself a lot to my friends who weren't having to do all of these things, and it just really does feel isolating when you don't have people who are doing all of those things that you're doing.
Totally understand. That brings up to my next question. This is like a big one too. I've like been hearing a lot of people talk about things that. Would you say during the time span of your journey and still continue on, would you say people respect your decision, what you were doing, or did people also disrespect you, like, oh, like you can have one cookie or you can have like one more extra meal or what that case is? Like, did like your friends and the people who you hang out with, did they respect you for doing that, or did they disrespect you?
I think it took some time for them to realize how serious I was, you know, and I think in order to show how serious you are, you have to like be very firm with your answers. People do what they're comfortable with, you know, and so it's like they like the status quo. And so if you're the person who always goes back for seconds and then they see that you're not going back for seconds, of course they're gonna be like, hey, yeah, go get seconds. And you're like, oh no, like I'm trying something new. And they're like, oh no, really, it's fine, go get seconds, you know? And so I think you have to be firm and like be able to voice that you're making different decisions now because you have different goals. And even if it's like, listen, I know I'm not going to be perfect, but like I'm really going to try this, you know. And I think people are going to be more on board, and they were more on board when I was like, I don't really know exactly like if this is going to work perfectly, but like I'm going to really try it, and they can kind of come behind you on that. And so now it's to the point where it's been long enough where like my family and friends are very respectful, and I'm like, actually no, I'm bringing my meal prep to our weekend gathering, you know. And they're like, some of my friends will bring their meal prep now because they're like, yeah, that's a good idea. I'd like to not be like hungry all day after breakfast, you know. So it's become a lot better.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's powerful too, because I know, like, and that's been an issue I see in a lot of people too. It's like sometimes their friends be on board, or sometimes they're not. It's like that respect and disrespect. It's like,
yeah,
how'd you handle it? You know, how'd you go about it too?
Yeah, and it really comes down to like, are you gonna let people's perception of you dictate your actions? You know, like I'm definitely a Tupperware girl, and like, do I love being Tupperware girl? Like, no, not necessarily, but like being Tupperware girl is getting me closer to my goals. And so like, if that means that I'm Tupperware girl, like sitting in between church services, like eating my food on the couch like a weirdo, like, oh well, you know, good conversation starter, I guess.
Yeah, 100% always is, man. I done it too. I took meals to weddings and stuff like that. Like, not totally understand, but like, yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do at the end to get yourself to the goals. Like, again, like you just said that before, it's like you only get one body, so it's like, why not make the most out of it too? And it's awesome that you bring like some of your friends are on the board now with like, cool, let's bring the meals together and things like that, or let's have big whole meal containers and stuff like that. Also, too, it saves money at the end of the day too. You're not about going to restaurants, or like you can still go out to restaurants because you know like what meals you had before, so it can prime you to what you really want to have when you go out to restaurants and things like that. So that's powerful and things like that, because a lot of times people get sucked into like just one more, you know, food, drink, whatever that is, just to keep them the same, or you know, make them feel guilty for doing that and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's huge and things like that. So we talk about the fast food takeouts and things like that. Now we move into kind of just like more strength training. Like you got more into benching, squatting, deadlifting that you never got used to.
Yeah.
So take us along that. How'd you feel going into those movements and being like almost like a gym girl in the sense of like lifting heavy and things like that?
I remember you made the comment once, and you probably don't even remember this, but we were deadlifting, and I don't remember if we were probably using the trap bar still at that point. And I think we were around like 200 or something like that, 200 pounds. And I remember you going, oh, I mean, look at you. Like, think about it. One day it'd be like 180, lifting 315. And I was like, yeah, one day I will, you know? And I feel like that comment, I was like, man, wait, like I could actually like do that, you know? Because I really loved lifting heavy, and I thought that was really cool. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. Like I'm actually trying to pursue that still.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's huge, because I remember a time we just start from dumbbells, and then like here you are benching 135, you know, squatting like over 2 plates, deadlifting like close to 3 plates now.
So close, yeah.
So like we've done all these things in like the proper manner of time, while you also still hitting goals and things like that. And also too, at the same time, there's have been multiple conversations have to like bring you back down. It's like, hey, listen, like the reason why the scale's not shifting that much because you build muscle while also losing body fat too. So there've been times we had to talk about like, hey, listen, like it's okay, like the weight doesn't move, or it like slowly decreases because you're still building muscle. I mean, look at the strength you gain during the time that we work together, right? From starting with kettlebells all the way up to using barbells and things like that.
Right.
So it's a big change and things like that.
Oh, for sure.
And lots of SpongeBob references too.
Way too many.
She enjoyed everything about it too. I don't think there was a session I just did not go without a SpongeBob reference.
Probably not. Probably not.
So fast forward, after we worked together, we got down 50 pounds, correct? Got down past 200. Now, where you at right now? Let's take it past working together. Where you at currently right now?
So right now I'm trying to drop about 15, 20 more pounds and then really push into powerlifting. So I've started doing I'm doing all 3, like squat, bench, deadlifts, all of those lifts consistently just to like build technique. Strength is going back up on those, which is great. really dialing in nutrition, like probably as strict as I've been. And it's a lot harder now that I'm like lighter, which you always told me, or like it's, you know, like weight loss has been really easy for you and it's going to get harder. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. And it's a lot harder. And so I'm finding that I have to really be a lot more intentional about my decisions. Because if I'm like, oh, like screw it, I'm going to have, you know, 3 chocolate chip cookies, like I'm going to notice that I had 3 chocolate chip cookies when I'm like looking at the scale and like didn't see the progress that I wanted. And then I'm going to be like, stupid cookies, you know? And so it's really making me like actually ask myself, is this going to be worth it? Because it is my goal to like continue to lose. Which at this point, like, I feel like I'm very healthy. You know, I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do before. Living a life that's a lot more free than the life before. You know, I'm not living in insecurity. I'm like, I have this boldness to try things, which is the whole reason I started this like journey to begin with, because I just felt like I wasn't able to be a 24-year-old, because at the time I was 24. And so I feel like in that sense, like I've made it, you know, but I think aesthetically I'd like to go a little bit further. And then especially with powerlifting and like eating in a surplus, I just would like to be at a healthier body weight before like kind of shifting into eating more.
Sure.
But yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now.
That's awesome. And like, how would you say like your perception changed from the time you started your fitness journey up to now?
How has my perception changed? I just think that lifting is so powerful, because it really empowers you to work for something, like showing up to the gym when you don't want to, and then doing it anyway. It's this feedback loop that's like, I can do hard things, and that translates into every aspect of your life in other ways. And so like coming from someone who didn't really grow up going to the gym, and I was never really comfortable in gyms, it's been really cool for that to completely change, and for that to be where I want to be. And like wanting to encourage other people to go as well, you know?
No, that's huge right there, and thanks for that. So, because a lot of times, like, when people first start getting to go from, I don't know what to do. Now here you are, fast forward 2 years now, there's some change. It's like, look where you're at now.
Right.
Like, doing all the big threes, you know, gonna get yourself in powerlifting. You have some major roadblocks earlier this year and things like that. But like you're still able to have those habits, those tools to help you stay within that range to get yourself where you're at right now, and also move forward in the future and things.
Yeah, definitely.
So those all play in a big role and things that. So what advice would you give to especially females who are starting out or who are in your position? What advice would you give them?
My advice would probably be that you're the one holding you back. Like you're letting your fear and insecurity and anxiety hold you back. And like, what a shame to let that hold you back. If you can step out and be uncomfortable and just be okay with being uncomfortable for a little bit, then you're going to be okay, you know?
100%.
And so like find someone who's qualified to help you. Friends usually just don't cut it. Like in my experience, like so many times it's, you know, you tell a friend like, hey, I'm going to go to the gym. Make sure I go 3 times a week. That never works. I've tried it like so many times. It doesn't work. Like stop asking your friend to be your accountability partner if it hasn't worked anymore. They're not a good accountability partner. Find someone who you pay to be your accountability partner, because then you're giving them your money and then you're going to go, you know? And so even if that's for a little bit, I think it's worth the investment because you're educating yourself, you're making yourself uncomfortable, but in a way that's safe. And you don't have to be like scared that you're going to hurt yourself or scared that you're going to do something wrong. You know, you have like a built-in friend that's like helping you out through the process, through that learning process. But yeah, like be scared and do it anyway. You know?
Oh, you heard it here, ladies. That's what you gotta do here. I didn't say it, that was on her right here.
Yeah.
So now moving forward is like you're starting your own business now, correct?
I am.
Why don't you tell the audience what you do and things that?
Yeah, so this whole process has been just life-changing for me, and it's kind of funny even talking about it, because if you told 3 years ago me that this was all happening, I would have laughed in your face. But yeah, I started an online personal training business, and I just really want to help people like get where they want to be. I just think there's so much fear and anxiety around the gym, and like there doesn't need to be.
Sure.
And so if I can be the person that seems relatable because I've been through it and can like partner with people to help them reach their goals, I want to do that.
No, that's powerful right there, especially with like new beginners like yourself. You know how to.
Yeah, complete beginner. Yeah,
exactly.
It's like starting from zero. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, 100%. So where people can find you?
Where can people find me? My business is called Pursuing Strength. So Instagram at Pursuing Strength. You can find me there.
All right, sounds good. Well, guys, did you have it? That was my client Taryn. How she transformed herself of working with me for 15 months, down 50 pounds, changed out her whole wardrobe at the same time. And here she is, more confident, empowered, and looking to change some future lives. So Taryn, I appreciate you.
Yeah, it's been great.